The discussion continued with questions about the broader meaning of the operation and whether it was intended as a message to neighboring countries, particularly Mexico. The president was asked to clarify comments made earlier by senior officials, emphasizing the need to stop large-scale drug trafficking networks operating across borders. In response, the president stated that the operation was not designed as a direct warning to any specific foreign leader. He emphasized that the United States maintains diplomatic relations with Mexico and expressed personal respect for its current leadership. However, he also stressed that organized criminal groups continue to exert serious influence in certain regions, creating challenges that extend beyond politics and into public safety. According to the president, drug trafficking remains one of the most severe national security and public health concerns facing the United States. He pointed to the significant loss of life linked to illegal narcotics, explaining that the human cost of addiction and overdose has reached levels comparable to major historical conflicts. While official figures vary, he argued that the scale of the crisis demands decisive action and international cooperation. The president explained that illicit drugs enter the United States through multiple routes, including the southern border and, to a lesser extent, other entry points. He emphasized that this is not solely a border issue, but a complex international problem requiring coordinated efforts between governments, law enforcement agencies, and intelligence services. When asked why the decision was made to proceed with the operation at this particular time, the president clarified that planning had been underway for several days. Operational conditions, including environmental and logistical factors, played a critical role in determining the final timing. Once all necessary conditions aligned, the decision was made to move forward. He described the operation as carefully planned and precisely executed, with a strong emphasis on minimizing risk. According to the president, the objective was achieved efficiently, and personnel involved returned safely. He noted that while some equipment sustained damage, all assets were recovered and no serious injuries were reported. The president also addressed questions about the location where the individual was detained. He explained that the site was heavily secured and designed to withstand intrusion. Despite this, the operation proceeded swiftly, leaving little time for resistance or escalation. Specialized preparation ensured that all possible contingencies were considered, even though not all measures ultimately had to be used. Attention then turned to the future of Venezuela and what the next steps might be following the removal of its disputed leader. The president stated that discussions were ongoing and that decisions would be made carefully to avoid repeating past mistakes. He emphasized that the goal is stability, lawful governance, and improved living conditions for the Venezuelan people. According to the president, the United States intends to remain actively involved in diplomatic and strategic discussions to support a peaceful transition. He expressed the belief that many Venezuelans desire stronger relations with the international community and an end to prolonged political and economic hardship. The conversation also touched on allegations that criminal networks had been allowed to operate with impunity, contributing to widespread suffering both domestically and abroad. The president stated that such actions were unacceptable and that accountability was necessary. He argued that allowing these networks to function unchecked would pose ongoing risks to regional and global security. In closing, the president acknowledged that the decision carried significant risks and required careful judgment. While last-minute negotiations were reportedly proposed, he stated that the severity of the allegations and the long-term consequences of inaction led him to reject those options. In his view, decisive action was necessary to address the broader threat posed by transnational crime. He concluded by reiterating that the matter extends beyond politics and leadership changes. At its core, he said, the issue is about protecting lives, restoring order, and reinforcing the principle that no individual or organization should be above the law. Following the president's remarks, analysts noted that the operation marked a significant moment in the broader strategy against transnational organized crime. Rather than framing the action as a traditional military campaign, officials emphasized its legal basis and its connection to long-standing indictments and international law enforcement cooperation. This distinction, they argued, is critical in understanding how the United States views similar actions in the future. Legal experts pointed out that operations tied to existing indictments differ substantially from declarations of war. In this context, the objective is not territorial control or regime change through force, but the enforcement of legal accountability. Supporters of this approach argue that it aligns with precedents set by previous administrations, regardless of political affiliation, where targeted actions were conducted under executive authority. Questions were raised about transparency and congressional oversight. Some lawmakers expressed concern about being informed after the fact rather than beforehand. Others countered that operational secrecy was essential to prevent leaks that could compromise safety and effectiveness. This debate, while familiar, highlights the ongoing tension between security considerations and institutional processes. As discussions continued, attention shifted to regional implications. Observers noted that developments in Venezuela could have ripple effects across Latin America, particularly in countries grappling with organized crime and corruption. Governments in the region are now assessing how these events may influence their own domestic policies and relationships with Washington. There was also renewed focus on the humanitarian dimension. Commentators stressed that prolonged instability, economic collapse, and criminal influence have contributed to widespread hardship for ordinary citizens. Any long-term solution, they argued, must prioritize economic recovery, access to basic services, and the restoration of public trust in institutions. The president reiterated that future decisions would be guided by these considerations. He emphasized that leadership transitions alone are insufficient without structural reforms and accountability mechanisms. According to his remarks, international partners will play an important role in monitoring progress and supporting lawful governance. Media coverage also highlighted public reactions within Venezuela. While information remained limited, reports suggested a mix of cautious optimism and uncertainty. Some citizens expressed hope that the developments could lead to meaningful change, while others remained skeptical, citing past disappointments and unfulfilled promises. From a global perspective, the situation underscored how interconnected issues of crime, migration, economics, and security have become. Analysts noted that unilateral actions are unlikely to succeed without sustained diplomatic engagement and cooperation with regional partners. This includes sharing intelligence, strengthening judicial systems, and addressing the economic drivers that enable criminal networks to thrive. The president addressed concerns about escalation, stating that the goal was not continued confrontation, but deterrence and accountability. He emphasized that further actions would depend on evolving conditions and the behavior of those involved. Diplomacy, he said, remains an essential tool alongside enforcement. As the interview concluded, it became clear that the events had opened a new chapter in U.S. foreign policy discussions. Supporters viewed the operation as a decisive step against impunity, while critics urged caution and greater emphasis on multilateral solutions. Both sides, however, acknowledged the scale and complexity of the challenges involved. Ultimately, the president framed the issue as one that transcends political cycles. He argued that protecting communities from the consequences of transnational crime requires long-term commitment, clear legal frameworks, and cooperation across borders. Whether the recent actions will produce lasting change remains to be seen, but they have undeniably reshaped the conversation.